Hello and assalamu alaikum everyone. I am Kashif Kamran, the double A tutor, and I welcome you all to a very important session which is taking place just 24 hours before the double A June 25 exam. Today is Sunday and tomorrow you have your exams on Monday. And today I'm discussing with you the key issues impacting student success in the AA paper. This is just like fine tuning. So if you have any misunderstanding or any misconception, you can just clarify that 24 hours before your real exams. Now, just before looking into the key issues, I would just like to emphasize on the time management once and finally. You know there are two sections in the paper, section A and section B, and you know the weightage of each section, how important they are in your success. The time management is important because generally I've seen students rushing over section A. They don't put much time on it. In like 15-20 minutes, they will be over with section A, which compromise the quality. You need to spend a good time on section A because there are three OT cases, and you have to read those OT cases well to pick up the right answer, or improving the prospects of picking the right answer. Now you have 54 minutes of the total exam time, which should be going on this 30 marks section. And you have three OT cases, and each of those OT cases have five OT questions. So that means that uh, for one OT question, you have 3.6 minutes. So reading it carefully and then thinking of the right answer, you have a good enough time. So you have 3.6 minutes per OT question. You have 15 OT questions, so you should not be in a rush or a speed. You should ideally be spending time on each OT question carefully, approximately 3.5 minutes, and you will be able to pick up the right answer in a more appropriate manner. Yes, some of the OT questions might be pretty simple. You might even click the right answer within a minute or few seconds. So that means that will increase the time for the more challenging OT questions where you are struggling or you're finding a bit difficulty in picking up the right answer. You can even increase the time on that OT questions because some of the OT questions you might be taking the right answer within a minute. So that will save the time for the more challenging OT questions, and you can balance off the section A very well within the 54 minutes time. Then definitely you have the section B, which is the mainstay of the paper, 70% of the paper, and you have 126 minutes for the 70 marks. Question number one for 30 marks will have 54 minutes. The question two for 20 and the question three for 20 will have 36 minutes each, which includes the reading and planning time. So when I say 54 minutes for section A and when I say 126 minutes for section B, it includes the reading and planning time as well as the writing time. So you need to ensure that you're giving every section the appropriate time, and you should prioritize your opportunities because there could be difficult things in the paper which you might not know, or which at the very first time when you read it, you might not understand what the examining team is asking. Don't just waste your time glaring at that question or thinking about that question. Just ignore it, or you can even flag that question and you can come to that question later. First, uh, prioritize what you know. First, prioritize the opportunities. First, prioritize that I know 60% of the paper and I'll do it first. Then go down doing the 40% paper, which have challenges for you or which you didn't understand at the first go. So even if you don't know the answer of a one OT question, just flag that and come back to it later. So just keep moving ahead with opportunities. Where you find something easy and you understand it, do it first. If you find something challenging at the first go, or you fail to understand what the examining team is asking, rather than wasting time glaring, thinking, and increasing your stress level or increasing your anxiety, it's better to ignore it and move forward. Because see, uh, any student who wants to be successful, you need to look at the optimism. You need to look at the glass is half full rather than the glass is half empty. So there would be plenty of opportunities which you know you can do and you can score. And then come to those areas which you don't know or you struggled at the first time to understand what the examining team is asking. So you need to prioritize the paper into two parts. Priority one, do do things you know the best. Priority two, do things where you struggled. So in that way, you are maximizing your prospects of passing. But everything, whether the priority one or the priority two, has to be done within the time management. That is very, very important. You have to take the wise decisions tomorrow, because if you don't know anything, immediately move on. That is the wise decision. But if a student just keep thinking about it and thinking about it, you're wasting 5 minutes, you're wasting 6 minutes. It would have been better you would have gone to another question and do it. Because at the end of the day, your first target is to get 50. So your wise decisions will make your life easier, and your wise decisions will make things easier for you to fetch the 50 marks, which is the first target for any student. Then going on to 60s and 70s, that's the second step, right? Is that clear to all of you? So wise decisions, looking into the opportunities, prioritizing the opportunities, looking at the optimism, not the pessimism, looking at the glass is half full, not half empty. Prioritize what you know first. I hope you're clear on that, everyone, right? If you can just drop a quick message in the chat box, yes, I am, or I am not. So I know you are here and you're listening before I move to the next target. Is everyone clear? Okay, so have you understood this message of prioritizing the paper? The one you know and the one you don't know? That will make things easier for you, right? Okay, next. Audit risk. We know that is such an important question in section B. And I was reading through the examiner report for September December 24 paper. And I came across some of the concern areas of the examiner, and I thought I should share that with you so that you're better versed with them and you're not repeating the same tomorrow. Now, the first issue in an audit risk question, which is a very popular question in section B, is if you look into the screen, the very first issue is right here. Issue number one, copy paste without proper risk identification. At times, the student just copy paste a whole paragraph or a whole chunk of paragraph while they're reading through an audit risk scenario, not identifying what exactly is going wrong in that paragraph. So if you're reading something, I'll just show you an illustration of that when I go to the practice platform shortly, that when you're reading through something, you will immediately click, this is the issue, this is the problem. Rather than copying the whole chunk of a paragraph, you can just copy the sentence which tells you the risk. And I'll just demonstrate that shortly. So just wait for it. So at times the student copy a larger chunk of text, and later when they come to write it down, they even forget why they copy pasted that. So try to copy paste a line or a sentence or a word which can recall later why you put it. Because when you're starting to write the answer, that copy paste should be beneficial rather than you start thinking why I copy pasted it. Number two, incorrect number of risk. Now, how many times this has been told that if you get a question which says, uh, explain 8 audit risk or explain 6 audit risk, you know this number is given in the AA paper. So you know exactly how many risks you need to write. So if the examining team says 6 audit risk and you write 7, 8, 9, 10, you are not getting any extra marks. You are frustrating the marker checking your paper. And to me, the marker will be checking the first 6 only because he asked for 6. he will be checking 6. So don't be in any optimism that even if I wrote 10, the marker will choose the best 6 of the 10. No. So please don't write extra risk when the examining team is saying 6 or 8. Poor explanation of risk. Definitely that's a big problem, right? That when you are explaining the risk, this is very, very important. Look at this sentence here. I'm reading this sentence. Poor explanation of risk. To me, this is the biggest problem. Explanations of risk did not clearly specify the financial statement area affected. I have told this hundreds of times to my students that when you're writing the risk cannot be without the impact. If you're writing a risk and in the whole answer, when I'm checking your answer, I cannot find what is understated or what is overstated. I cannot identify whether the assets are overstated or the liabilities are understated. I cannot identify whether the intangibles are overstated and the amortization expense is understated. How would I reward you? You need to specify the financial statement impact. You need to specify the under and overstatement because that's the risk. That's what the examining team is looking for in an audit risk. You tell the whole story, but you don't tell what is understated specifically and what is overstated specifically. You're losing marks. So if it is a 1 mark audit risk, you're hardly getting 0.5 or 0. The assertions involved. For example, if you're saying that inventory could be overstated, so you might even say that there is a risk in inventory valuation because valuation is an assertion. So if you spontaneously recall an assertion, I'm not saying forcefully adding it because you can say inventory could be overstated because if it is wrongly valued. Now, valued is an assertion. Or you might say that asset could be recorded fictitiously, even if it is not existing. So if you can relate it to assertion, that's better. Otherwise, just saying under and overstatement, it's fine. Or whether the risk relates to inherent control or detection. We normally say detection when we say it's a first year audit. We normally say that it's a first year audit and the audit firm will have less knowledge of business. And because of the less knowledge of business, it will give rise to a detection risk. We do use this word detection risk, particularly in the first year audit. But yes, all other risks in the paper are inherent. So it's not like telling every time this is an inherent risk, a wrong accounting treatment is an inherent risk, an estimate is an inherent risk. So yes, if there is a control risk, for example, you think there are weak corporate governance in place, or there is a lack of internal audit department, or you believe there is a specific control deficiency going on, which is creating the risk of material misstatement, you can say this is a control risk. But I would prefer that most of the risks are inherent. So repeatedly telling this is an inherent risk, this is an inherent risk would not make sense. For a detection risk, you can do it. And for a control risk, you can do it because I think control risk is hardly one in the 6 audit risk you might be writing. And in that case, you can say this is a control risk. Vague terms like misstated without clarity were common. A lot of times students says it is misstated. No, misstated is not the right term. You need to tell what is understated and what is overstated, particularly when you're dealing with an account balance, particularly when you're dealing with an accounting treatment. Yes, if you're talking about weak internal controls, then you can say financial statements could be materially misstated, not misstated. Even if you're talking about a disclosure not given, then you can say financial statements could be materially misstated because disclosure is not given. Now, in these cases, we say financial statements could be materially misstated, not misstated. But when you're dealing with an accounting treatment, you're dealing with a specific account balance, sorry, like inventory or like receivables or like payables, then or intangibles, then you say that this particular balance is understated and that particular balance is overstated. So you have to write that way. Just saying misstated is not very good in the AA paper. Management responses instead of auditor responses. How funny that is. It says, the question says, explain 8 audit risk and the auditor responses. Why are you writing a management response? What management do? No, what auditor will do when he will come to the audit. So if there is a risk, what will you do when you come and start the audit? vague or inadequate auditor responses, responses such as discuss with management and not telling what are you discussing, or simply saying increase skepticism but not telling why, will lose marks. So at times the student just write a blunt statement, discuss with management. What are you discussing with management and why? You know that I've told you hundreds of times that when you're writing a procedure, the procedure has to be with purpose and the procedure has to be with the subject matter. Discuss with management. Which management? Either you are discussing with the finance director, either you're discussing with the middle management. Which management are you discussing with? And what are you discussing? So these things are important. And why are you discussing? What you want to confirm? Just like you write a procedure, right? You know, these responses are basically procedures. So you know the fundamentals of a procedure, that a procedure should have an action, discuss. A procedure should have a subject matter, management. The procedure should have the purpose. What are you discussing with management? And you should have the reason why. Increase the professional skepticism. Why? In which area? Increasing the professional skepticism will benefit in what? Please complete the sentence properly. Just writing three words, increase professional skepticism, these three words will not give you 1 mark. Weak understanding of the accounting standards. You know that the audit risk in the scenario is moving around accounting standards you have done in the financial reporting paper. So, if you're good into financial reporting, you're good into accounting standards, you will easily pick out something going wrong as per the accounting standards. You can easily pick out that management has capitalized the entire refurbishment cost when the refurbishment cost has to be split between a capital expenditure and a revenue expenditure. So you can pick up the accounting issues very well if you're well versed with financial reporting. And poor time management and poor selection of risk. Definitely, you cannot overrun time, because you overrun time because examining team says write 6 audit risk and you write 10. That's a very bad thing you can do in the paper. Time management issues and poor selection of risk. You might be selecting the risk which are not very important in the scenario, or just hypothetically selecting a risk. Sometimes the student think about the risk themselves, even though there are clear number of risk in the scenario. Try to pick a risk given in the scenario rather than having a hypothetical thinking. Uh, there are, if the examining team is saying 6 audit risks, there will be 10 in the scenario. There will be 11 in the scenario. Pick up the 6 you are good at. Pick up the 6 you can write upon, rather than picking up the risk you cannot write upon. I'll just illustrate that shortly. So these are key issues in the audit risk, right, which needs to be addressed. And I hope you will take careful note of that when you're sitting in the exam tomorrow. Is that clear to all of you? Okay, I'll just be coming down, drilling a quick scan of the September, December 24 paper, at least writing 1 and 2 for you so you know how to go about it. The next problem with students is in internal control area. You know how dominating that is in the section B. The first thing is failure to identify the actual deficiency. Again, the students just copy paste, just like the audit risk, but they don't pay attention to what is the deficiency in the copy pasted paragraph. Try to focus on the deficiency when you're copy pasting. Try to focus on the sentence illustrating the deficiency rather than copy pasting, not even knowing what's the deficiency inside it. Lack of explanation. Definitely, when you tell that this is a weakness or this is a deficiency, the students don't think about the implication and risk are not very well explained, losing marks. If you say this is a deficiency, why? And what is the implication of the deficiency? What will go wrong? What will be understated or overstated? Or how will the deficiency impact the business objectives? Because a deficiency is not just understating or overstating something, or is causing a material misstatement in the financial statement. It can even result in losing a stakeholder, or impacting the business goodwill, or impacting the business reputation. So that is also a deficiency, right? So a deficiency is more broader in terms of impact. It's not like an audit risk where we have to keep the impact just to the financial statements. In a control deficiency, the impact could be on the financial statement, but it could be on the business as a whole. So you need to think about the impact more broadly. Poor linkage between deficiency and recommendation. You need to give a recommendation which address the deficiency. At times, your deficiency is different and your recommendation is not even addressing that deficiency. Try to think that what was the deficiency and then address that deficiency through a very proper recommendation. Your recommendation should overcome the deficiency. Your recommendation should address the deficiency rather than you're writing a strange recommendation which does not address the deficiency you have written in the very first column. Insufficient detail in description. Uh, I've mentioned this that, for example, if you are telling a deficiency, it could not be 1 to 2 sentences. I think if you look at a proper statement, a deficiency should go up to 4 to 5 sentences because you will first copy paste the deficiency. You will explain why it is a deficiency, and then you will tell the implication. So it takes up to 4 sentences minimum. And a sentence is where you put a full stop, right? So 4 sentences minimum is like a well-defined deficiency. Yes, a recommendation could be 1 sentence, max 2 sentences, because recommendation is just like giving a blunt statement, but it should not like be 3 words. That's like should management should authorize. No, you should give a proper statement in even the recommendations. Inappropriate or ineffective test of controls. When you're writing a test of control, you're not giving a proper test of control. A lot of time, I have seen students that when they're writing a test of control, they either focus a lot on observation. You can't observe everything, right? You need to look into documents. You need to look into support documents. Inspection, inspecting the documents is a very important test of control, right? A lot of time the students perhaps try to observe everything. How many times I've told this that observation goes with a process, like the staff clocking in and clocking out, uh, time in and time out. That is something you can observe that yes, they are doing the time in and time out, but preferably where there is a document, inspect the document because a document will give you a better assurance as an auditor, right? But observation are done for manual processes, like you observe the inventory count. You observe the inventory count to ensure adherence to the inventory count instruction. So even in the inventory count, observation is like checking whether controls are being followed. So please ensure you're writing the proper test of control, focused on documents, checking of documents. That's more appropriate. Direct controls. There seems to be a lot of problems, and I'll just be illustrating one quick answer for direct control shortly. But student tends to misunderstand what a direct control is in the AA paper. So I thought giving you a proper explanation and making you clarified before your exams tomorrow. A direct control is an internal control aimed at preventing or detecting a material misstatement in the financial statement. It addresses the specific risk to ensure transactions are properly authorized, recorded, and processed. So when you're reading the scenario, an examining team says, explain the 3 direct controls. You will read the scenario. A deficiency is not a direct control, right? You know, a deficiency comes separately. A direct control is a control which is operating effectively and which is addressing the risk of material misstatement, which is addressing the risk of something going wrong. So if you think there is a control in the scenario which is wonderfully operated and it is addressing a risk, because any control which mitigates a risk is a direct control. So if the management has put in a control which you believe is mitigating a risk, like a risk of bad debts, or like a risk of theft, or like a risk of someone stealing the inventory from the warehouse, if you believe that control is mitigating that risk, then that definitely is a direct control. Direct control means a good control, right? A good control in place, mitigating the risk. It is not a deficiency. A lot of times students pick a deficiency as a direct control, right? And I'll again be demonstrating. For a control to be considered direct, I'm reading the bullet number 2. For a control to be considered as direct, It must be well designed and effective in preventing or detecting a misstatement. An example is setting and reviewing the customer credit limit with approval from responsible official, which mitigates the risk of bad debt. This was in the September-December 24 paper, right? That there was a proper credit check, there was a proper credit approval, and the finance director approved the credit limits, and the finance director reviewed the credit limits on a regular basis. That was such an effective control of reducing the risk of bad debts. That is a good control. That is a direct control. In audit, auditors assess these direct controls to determine the reliability during audit procedures, because auditor needs to gather knowledge of business. So they're not just looking at the deficiencies in the internal control system, they're also looking at the direct controls in place, and how effectively the direct controls are mitigating the risk, because auditor is very concerned about risk, right? So key features of the direct control includes targeting a risk of material misstatement. So if any control is targeting the risk, mitigating the risk, that's a direct control, right? It is effectively designed. There is no weakness, there is no deficiency, and involve authorization, verification, or segregation of duties. So if you think some of the controls has have these properties like authorization, verification, or segregation of duties, ideally in the exam, that will be a direct control. And I'll be illustrating it shortly. Audit report question. In the audit report question, what I've seen is that students either simply say a modified audit opinion. They don't name the opinion, like qualified opinion, adverse opinion. Just saying modified opinion is not satisfying the marker. I've seen so many students with answers saying it will result in a modified opinion, not telling qualified or adverse. Secondly, the student failed to comment on whether it is material or material and pervasive. At times, they fail to identify the percentage, the misstatement. The misstatement will be given in a reporting question, right? And you need to calculate that misstatement, the materiality of that misstatement by dividing it by total assets and dividing it by the profit and finding out the percentage, and then concluding, is it material or material and pervasive? Then you have to tell that is it a qualified opinion or an adverse opinion. Then you have to tell that in the audit report, you will give the opinion first, followed by the basis of opinion. And in the basis of opinion, you will explain the problem, you will explain the issue. So in a reporting question, at times you miss on the calculation of materiality. You give a wrong judgment. When something is material, you say this is pervasive, or you fail to comment on material and pervasive, and you give a journal statement, it will result in a modified opinion. At times the students are so diplomatic that they will say qualified opinion, and then they will say adverse opinion. So they are playing diplomacy with the marker. They're playing diplomacy with the examiner, that even if I get qualified wrong, I will get marks for adverse. No, you have to give one opinion, one opinion. So please ensure that a reporting question is not just opinions. It could be possible that the scenario given to you is giving rise to a MURGC paragraph, or the scenario is giving rise to an emphasis of a matter paragraph. So don't just like at times the student just limit the reporting question. They think a reporting question is just about an opinion. Yes, if there is a misstatement, definitely a misstatement will affect the opinion. But what if there is a right disclosure given by the management? And what if the disclosure is adequate? The disclosure is rightly given, but that disclosure is fundamental to the users of the financial statement? Then definitely you will give an emphasis of a matter paragraph. But yes, if it is a listed company and it is a very important disclosure and affects the user of the financial statement, then you will think about giving a CAM. So think broadly. Reporting is not just opinions, right? Reporting is also CAM, MURGC, emphasis of a matter paragraph. Read the situation well. But yes, if the situation is a misstatement will always affect an opinion. But if it is something positive, like a disclosure given, and if it is a disclosure given of going concern, material uncertainties of going concern, then you know you add an MURGC paragraph. So be very open, reading through the reporting question and see exactly what's happening in the reporting question. So these are issues the student go through in a report question. Finally, substantive procedure, which for students is like a nightmare. Even though the performance I've seen of my batch and the student who have submitted me assignments this time for the June batch, I was very pleased with your answers around substantive procedure. You carefully use the action words like review or analyze or recalculate or discuss. You even talked about the subject matter, like if you are inspecting, then what are you inspecting? If you are discussing, with whom you are discussing. If you are analyzing, then what are you analyzing? If you are recalculating, what are you recalculating? So it's action, it's source. And then if you're discussing with management, what are you discussing with management and why? The why is the purpose. If you're analyzing, what are you analyzing and why? If you are inspecting something, what are you inspecting and why? So if you're recalculating, what are you recalculating and why? So any student who has a what and who has a why, you're writing the good procedure. So just focus on an action, what and why. Review, what, why. Discuss, what, why. Analyze, what, why. Recalculate, what, why. And you can write a wonderful procedure. Vague procedures like perform a cutoff test, just like here, perform a cutoff test without explaining which documents. You're performing a cutoff test on the sales invoices. You're performing a cutoff test on good dispatch note. You're performing a cutoff test on the good receiving notes. Which document are you performing the cutoff test? So simply saying perform a cutoff test is a vague statement. Where is the what? Where is the why? So please focus on source documents. See this, specify the source documents to make your marker happy. And student try to rote learn without tailoring to the scenario. The students have rote learn procedures on receivables, payables, cash and bank. If that comes on Monday, they will just put the rote learn procedures. They will not adapt to the scenario. Hundreds of times I've told you that procedure has to be case specific. Honestly tell me, the procedures coming in the double A paper, do they have a scenario with them? Yes or no? Do they have a scenario? Every time you look at a procedure in the double A paper, do they have a small scenario before it? I'm waiting for your answers. Do they have a small scenario before it? You have to read that scenario, right? And you have to identify the procedures from that scenario. Just rote learning procedure for tomorrow and just looking at that particular topic coming tomorrow in the exam and just writing what you've learned is useless, right? Because examining team is not very happy with you writing generic procedure. They want you to write tailored procedure. They want you to write specific procedure. And a lot of time the student miss on analytical procedures. Suppose you get to write procedures on revenue. You can think about analytical procedures. You can analyze the current year revenue with the prior year. You can identify the fluctuations and you can discuss the reasons of any major fluctuations with management. Even when you are making procedures on revenue, you know revenue is something which can be analyzed very well. You can analyze the gross profit margin. If there is a significant rise in the gross profit margin, it could be possible that revenue is overstated. So even from the gross profit margin analysis, you can pick up the under and overstatements in revenue because revenue is part and parcel of the gross profit margin. So be open to analytical procedures, be open to analyzing something, be open to analyzing. Suppose you get procedures on receivables. You can analyze the receivable collection days. You can analyze the receivable collection period. And if there is a significant increase in the receivable collection period, you might discuss with management, is there a need for a bad debts? So students generally ignore analytical procedure when they can give them easy marks. Students are obsessed with board minutes and representation data. Please, representation letters are only taken in subjective areas like estimates, something where you believe things are subjective, provisions, estimates. But you can't take representations in every area of your double A paper. And then students love to write board minutes. Even that's the purchase of a single computer. They will say, review the board minutes to confirm the approval of the computer. Do you believe that board will give an approval of a single computer? Board approves the capital expenditure budget. Board approve buying of a plant and machinery, or board approve acquisition, something major, right? Something major. But a single computer or a single car, and you say, review the board minutes for the purchase of a car. How illogical that is. You believe board is sitting in a company just to authorize a single car? Think broadly, who is a board, right? So have common sense. But I hope that what and why will help you, all of you. Are you clear with thinking about the what and why when you're writing a procedure tomorrow? All of you? Before I just give you a quick scan of the September December 24 paper, will you be able to do it? What and why? When you're writing a procedure tomorrow, ask what, ask why. Can you just please quickly respond to me? Are you clear with it? Will you be thinking about analytical procedures if possible? Will you be thinking about what and why with every procedure you're writing in the exam tomorrow? All of you? Okay, Rashad, thank you so much for that confirmation. At least one student is like actively involved in the session. I believe if other can respond in as well would make sense. Okay, thank you so much, Abdi Fateh, for that confirmation. Okay, just let's move on and look at the quick scan of the September December 24 paper, which to me is more important because this issues I was discussing with you is from the September December 24 examiner report, and I don't know why students don't read it. Okay, you can see in front of your screen the September December 24 paper. I'll just spend a quick 20-25 minutes on it. I'm just looking into the critical parts of the paper, not the minor parts of the paper. Uh, a journal issue is that when the examining team asks you describe the 5 components of the internal control system, student merely write one sentence. Control environment, they will write in the description, it's the tone at the top, or it's the culture. Writing that much is not describe. Describe means at least to give 2 to 3 sentences when you're describing something. I've seen students, examining team ask you, describe why a deficiency is significant, 4 marks, and they're simply saying one sentences. Or describe the content of the audit engagement letter, scope, management responsibility. Is that describe? There is a difference between describing and listing. Please be sure that when the question says describe, even if it is a knowledge-based question, describe means 2 to 3 sentences. And a sentence is where you put a full stop. So writing this much on your screen is useless. Okay, just let's focus on the key areas, right? Okay, first one, a direct control and a test of control. Now, I was just illustrating that to you that a direct control is a good control, is a control which is mitigating the risk. And so you have to read the scenario well, and you need to pick up the positive controls given in. Now, you have to do it on the sales system. That is very important. At times, the student don't read this, and they will start to pick the direct control from the sales system as well as from the payroll system given under. So you only have to, and the purchase system, sorry. There are 3 systems given, but you only have to focus on the sales system for the direct controls, not on any other system. So just let's read the sales system and see if we can find a good example of a direct control. Graston Company has both business and retail customers. Just please confirm you can see the practice platform on your screen, right? All of you? Can you see the practice platform on your screen? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we were reading the sales system, right? Graston Company has both business and retail customers. Business customers can apply for a credit account through Graston Company's credit control department. After performing necessary checks, the credit control department sets a credit limit, which is authorized and then regularly reviewed by the finance director. I just mentioned examples: authorized, verifications, segregation of duties is something which makes the control good, direct, key. Now, this is a direct control because everything is so good here. It says that after performing the necessary check, the credit control department sets the limit. It is authorized and regularly reviewed by the finance director. Definitely, this control is reducing the risk of irrecoverable debts, bad debts, because you are not just assigning the credit limit, you're also reviewing the credit limits on a regular basis. So you might change the credit limits if you think they should be changed over time, and you are approving them to ensure you're only taking on the credit worthy customers who are likely to pay. So you're reducing the risk of bad debts. So you copy this line from here, and that's the first direct control. You take it in this column, and then you write after. This is a direct control as it addresses the risk of bad debts, as it mitigates the risk of irrecoverable or bad debts, as customers are checked before assigning credit limits, and then regularly reviewed, then and sorry, and then authorized. The regular review help ensure that the credit limits can be redefined or altered as needed. Full stop. So this is a direct control because it reduces the risk of the bad debts or irrecoverable debts. And something good in this control is that it's not just authorizing, it's also about reviewing. So to me, this is very important, right? That regular review is a very important control here. So it's not just you authorize and you ignore it, but you have a regular review of the credit limit. So for any customer, if you want to alter the credit limit, increase it, decrease it, you can do that on the basis of the customer, how regularly he is paying back to the company. So if you think that customer is paying back you on a regular basis, you can even increase his credit limit over a years because he's a good customer. So this is how things are going good in this company. Then definitely you need to write a test of control, which means that these credit checks are taking place. So you will review a credit check document. You will review a credit check document maintained by the Grandstand company to confirm that credit checks as defined, credit checks as defined are credit checks as defined are carried out, and there is a proper authorization of finance director evident from the signature. You can also check these signatures, right, that it matches with the finance director. So it is evident from the signature of the finance director. So you can just check through the document and you can see that the document is being properly maintained. They have all the tick marks, yes, no, everything. And you can also check the signature. Yes, I will be doing that, Rishad. I will be doing that, the opinion part, right? So I'll just be scanning on each of them quickly. So then again, you go down, you can see over here, as part of the invoicing process, a member of the finance team matches verification, the details on the online order with a good dispatch note before sales invoice is raised to the documents on these documents. See how wonderful this control is? It ensures that the invoices you raise to customer are not underbilled or overbilled. Because if they're been underbilled, the company is at a loss. And if they're overbilled, the customer will be unhappy with you and leave you. So when you check the good receiving notes, when you check the good dispatch note prior to raising the invoice, that is such a good control because it helps ensure or it helps mitigate the risk of under billing or overbilling. And underbilling has its own consequences and overbilling has its own consequences. In one case, the customer will be unhappy. In the other case, the company is losing. So that's a good control. That's a direct control, right? It's mitigating the risk. Then again, you can check over here. Each store charges the same prices for goods, but customers who are on the mailing list receive weekly emails with discount offers. To claim the discount, customer must show the email at the cash tills and have discount barcode within the email. The system deducts the discount from the prices charged. So that means only discount will only be given to the authorized customers who have the emails with the barcodes. You cannot claim unnecessary discounts, or discounts can't be claimed by customers who are not allowed to claim discounts. So discount system is going very effectively here. You're not giving over discounts to anyone as if you can give anyone 10% discount or 20% discount or 30% discount. It is coming through the email, and the email has a barcode, and the cash till will read the barcode and will only give you a discount which can be read through the barcode. So if the barcode tells 10%, you will only get 10%. So no manual alterations, right? That if I'm sitting on the cash till and someone is my family member, so I'll say, okay, instead of 10, I'll give you 20. So that is a very good control, right? That you will only be getting the discount which is mentioned on the email because that will be scanned through the barcode. Granson Company, on a regular basis, the last para, on a monthly basis, analyze revenue by store, product, and type of customer. Percentage movements in each of the category are reported with comparison to the previous month and previous year. On a monthly basis, the sales director review this information, investigate any unexpected movements, and complete a report. Wonderful. So they're not just analyzing the trends, a director is also reviewing it, and a director also investigate that why something is rising and falling, and he also reports that to the board meeting. See how wonderful this control is. It is such a good control that variances or unusual fluctuations are known by management. They take timely actions on that. They addresses them before something becomes burning and alarming. So three paragraphs and you have four good direct controls. You have to write three of them, not all four of them. Copy paste and then explain. Copy paste and then explain. Okay, moving on to the critical aspects. Okay, I'll not be doing the deficiencies. Mostly students are good into that. I have a limited time to the session. You have exams tomorrow. I just need to focus on a reporting question as well because that's a more problematic area. I just told you that when you're writing procedures on revenue, also think about writing analytical procedures, increase and decrease over the last year, or even doing the gross profit margin analysis just to ensure that if there is an increase in gross profit margin, it could possibly indicate an overstatement in sales. So think about analytical procedures even when you're writing procedures around revenue, income statement items, right? Again, this is a typical question, deficiencies in the corporate governance and give recommendations. Now, the problem I've seen with students in deficiencies in corporate governance, they tell the deficiency, but they don't tell uh, why. Just let me give you one example of it quickly. Graston Company is intending for a stock market listing in the next year and therefore wants to take steps to ensure that the company will be compliant with corporate governance principles. These are suggestions that there are suggestions, sorry, as the chief that as the chief executive officer, Ned Sepa, is due to retire shortly. he should become the chair of the board, and an alternative CEO be appointed. Now look at this. There is a suggestion that this chief executive officer, the name of the chief executive officer is Ned Seppa. She's not a Ned. Her name is Ned Seppa. So don't just confuse it with a non-executive director. There are suggestions that the chief executive officer, Ned Seppa, is due to retire shortly, and he become the chair of the board, and an alternative CEO is appointed. Now you copy paste this deficiency here, and you don't write why. Look at me writing the answer. Seppa will not be independent as a chair because she has been associated with the company before and knows everything about the company. The chair, the chair should have fresh pair of eyes to look at things from scratch. So if you're appointing a CEO who has already been there as a chair, we know the chair has to be independent, right? The chairman has to be independent. That's the best practice of corporate governance. Uh, SEPA will not have the fresh pair of eyes. She knows everything. She has familiarity with people, system, process. She will not be investigating things the way the chairman should. So chairman should have a fresh thinking, a fresh mind. He should not be knowing the company, and that's why he can exercise that fresh pair of eyes, right? When you know the company, you have knowledge of business, but that knowing the company is also becoming a familiarity threat. Then you give a recommendation that as per the governance best practices, as per the governance best practices, the chair should be independent. The chair should be independent to take uh, proper decisions, by uh, looking things from scratch. That's a recommendation. So a lot of time when the students are writing governance weaknesses, I think almost in every email I got on governance issues, I have told student that you're writing the issue, but you're not explaining why it's an issue. So if SEPA becomes the chair, what's the issue? She's not independent, and she will not have the fresh pair of eyes because she has been there in the company and she knows everything. You're not writing the advantages that she has a knowledge of business. You're writing the issue. The issue is she does not have a fresh pair of eyes. So you write two governance deficiencies and recommendations. You have 4 marks. So one for deficiency, one for recommendation. And that's how you're accumulating your marks. And you have a very small paragraph here. The company is actively recruiting the non-executive directors whose remuneration will include bonus based on company profit. How wonderful that is. You know, the NEDs can't be given the bonuses, right? They will have a self-interest. NEDs are only given a fixed fee. If you give bonuses to the NEDs, how will they work? They will have a self-interest. They will not be checking the understatements and overstatements in the profit. They will not be checking the problems in the financial statements because they will be happy with the profit being higher. They will themselves be part of manipulating the profits to keep the profit higher. So that's an issue here, right? I hope you will do justice with corporate governance weaknesses. That's another concern area when I was checking through the assignments. Explain the benefits of planning. Again, I told you the word is explain. So simply telling something like this, it helps conduct an efficient audit. It helps conduct an efficient audit. Full stop. You expect examining team will give you one mark here? No. This is just a list. Explain the benefit means every benefit should be 2 to 3 sentences long. And that's how you're writing every benefit. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and every of them is 2 to 3 sentences long. Then you will get mark up to 1. Okay, moving now to the reporting area. Okay, explain the 8 audit risk. I was just very clear that if it is 8, then it's 8. It should not be 9, 10, or 11. And you need to tell the responses as well. Students are very good, mostly in audit risk. What I've seen through the assignments which came to me, I didn't find much of the issues. Yes, at times you were missing on those under and over statements. At times you were missing on writing that vague term misstated. So be very specific to that. If I can just give you one quick example and move to the reporting area. Just looking at here, uh, if you can find this risk here, the company has been expanding steadily, and during the year, $2.4 million has been spent on refurbishing the store. All this expenditure has been recognized in the property, plant, and equipment. Now, you need to pick up the risk. The risk is that the $2.4 million spent on refurbishment and all this expenditure has been capitalized as part of property, plant, and equipment. What if some of this expenditure on refurbishment is of revenue nature and should be expensed out? So auditor wants to see the breakdown of it, right? So if I just copy paste this sentence here, I will be knowing the risk. The risk is that $2.4 million could include uh, items of revenue expenditure as well, which with as well, which if capitalized will overstate the property, plant, and equipment and understate operating expenses. It will overstate the property, plant, and equipment slash profit and understate operating expenses, right? So I put the statement and I quickly worded that in this statement, $2.4 million is a risk because this $2.4 million can include items of revenue expenditure, which if capitalized would result in this being understated and that being overstated. And I'll quickly write my response. The auditor should review the breakup of $2.4 million to identify any item of revenue nature which should not be capitalized. And if you find any, you will be discussing with the management to adjust it. Okay. Which should not be capitalized. Something like that. So you pick up a statement and you justify. But look at this overstatement and understatement coming down here, which is like very, very important. Just one quick example more. Uh, the company is also planning to add a rehearsal space to the 20 largest stores in order to finance this in April 20X5. The company obtained an $8 million interest-bearing bank loan, which is repayable quarterly in over 5 years. So you took a 5-year loan in April 20X5, copy paste over a 5 years time. There is a classification. There is, see, I brought the assertion. There is a classification risk as the entire 5-year loan could be classified as long term, could be classified as non-current liability, could be classified as non-current liability, even though even though a part of it under 12 months, a part of it under 12 months should be classified as current. This will uh, overstate the non-current liabilities and understate the current liability. So I will just have a quick review of the financial statements. I will have a quick review of the financial statements to confirm that the loan has been split into current and non-current liability. If I see that on the face of the financial statements in the current and non-current liabilities, I will be happy as an auditor. So please look at this. At every point, I'm telling under and overstatement where possible, and I'm telling the risk. Over here, I told about the classification risk. Over here, I told about items of revenue expenditure could be capitalized. So revenue expenditure, which could be capitalized. Risk and the impact. Risk is what can go wrong, and impact is under an overstatement. So you should have a risk, you should have an impact. Okay, then just let's go further. Lastly, I have a quick 10 minutes remaining. I can't put more time than that. You have exams tomorrow, and I have another session coming up for my other students. So substantive procedures, please do it on your own. Just need to put a quick scan on reporting. See all case-based substantive procedures. Okay, finally reporting. Okay, discuss the issue and describe the impact on the report if the issue remains unresolved. We have 5 marks for that. The 5 marks means you have proper 5 sentences coming in. During the testing of Oklahoma work in progress, the audit team has identified that the company had applied incorrect percentage completion while determining the value of a number of partly completed components. So the percentage stage of completion was wrongly assigned to the work in progress. Audit testing confirmed that the work in progress balance is overstated by 0.7 million. The directors of Oklahoma do not consider amending the financial statement. Now, this is a misstatement, right? So nothing to do with CAM and nothing to do with emphasis of a matter paragraph. This is a misstatement. A misstatement results in a qualified or adverse opinion. Audit testing has confirmed that the work in progress balance is overstated by 0.7 million, and directors are not interested in amending the financial statement. So they disagree with you. So you bring this control C down. So it says discuss the issue. So first you have to discuss the issue, and then you have to discuss the impact on report. So you can bring two headings, the issue, and you copy paste the issue. Audit testing has confirmed that the work in progress balance is overstated by $0.7 million, full stop. This is a misstatement, and this is the misstatement as the percentage of completion was wrongly assigned, was wrongly assigned, wrongly assigned on partly number of partly completed components. So this is a misstatement as the percentage of completion was wrongly applied on number of partly completed components. So that's the issue. Management is not considering amending the financial statement for this misstatement as this misstatement, which results in a disagreement, with auditor, as not amending the financial statements will not present a true and fair view to the shareholders. You have discussed the issue. See, if every bullet, look at the length of every bullet. Explain impact on the report. Now you will tell the materiality. $0.7 million not adjusted in the financial statements is you have been given the profit number somewhere. Just let's check that quickly. We have the profit, and okay, here the profit before tax is $12.3 million. Okay, can you just calculate it on the profit? How much is that? $0.7 million not adjusted in the financial statement is how much percent? Can you give me a quick answer, anyone? Or can I do the calculations if you are not interested in giving the answers? Okay, I got the answer, I guess. 5.7%. Okay. So it's a is 5.7% of the profit before tax. Hence, it is material to the financial statements. If the management doesn't adjust it, as they are unwilling, the auditor will issue a qualified opinion on the financial statements of Oka, Oklahoma Company, as the matter is material but not pervasive. Matter is material but not pervasive. Lastly, the audit report, the audit report will contain an a qualified opinion followed by a basis of qualified opinion para, which will state the reason of issuing the qualified opinion, which will state the reason of issuing the qualified opinion, that is the unadjusted misstatement of $0.7 million related to work in progress, full stop. Look at my 5 bullets and look at my 5 marks on the screen. I didn't use the word modified opinion. Look at my last paragraph, which mostly students miss. Please do give this last paragraph opinion followed by basis, and in the basis, what needs to be mentioned. Look at my 5 steps. Look at my 2 headings. Underline. It's a computer-based exam, so you can make a presentation good. Bold, underline. See how easier it is for the marker to read. Bold, underline. Issue, impact. Now the moment he sees your answer, the marker will know, okay, you wrote the issue, you wrote the impact, and immediately the marker will see 5 bullets, 5 marks. So please make your life easier, right? I hope the session is helping you. And I hope you will largely benefit from the discussion we had in the last 60 minutes around the issues, around a quick scan of the September-December 24 paper. We saw how to write a governance weakness, direct control, and audit risk, and we saw how to write a quick, good answer on reporting. We didn't have time to stretch on other areas, but I hope you will gain confidence and you will do your best tomorrow in your exams. I wish you all the very best of luck. The session will be recorded and will be shared with all of you. Thank you so much for coming in, taking your time out, and participating. All the best for tomorrow. Is everyone clear with reporting? Rashad, are you clear? Because you raised this question. Are you clear now with writing it down? Okay, that's great. Okay, thank you. You're all welcome, and I wish you the best of luck.